Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another TV show spoiler review, and I finally wrapped up season 1 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Been a long time coming. I'm gonna have to go through. Man, I just remember when I started this channel, as one of the earliest shows I wanted to start on was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. So I started with Duel Monsters, so I avoided as much as possible any possible spoilers as much as I can about any Vrains stuff for a while now. Just like with the Jolene Joestar adventure part of the JoJo Bizarre Adventure storyline, until I got through all those other arcs, that's when I will dive into the stuff fresh and new, so I get my overall perspective. Because Vrains is like a new thing to me, and I made a mistake months, or at least for a while now, thinking like, oh, it's just one season. No, it's 3 seasons. I just assumed it was only one season or something. I don't know why. But so now that I went through, now it was a little rocky because, like, I thought when I started watching certain anime, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, only went through, because I did like a cutoff point, like after like Duelist Kingdom, I did a review and then continued on into you know uh Battle City, and that was kind of a mistake in my part. I just forgive me, I was just like early on in my review stage, on camera stuff, didn't find my footing yet. But I started off with Duel Monsters, then to GX, then 5Ds, then Zexo, then Arc 5. So you can see all my reviews of all those Yu-Gi-Oh series up on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkative You hear my thoughts on each of the arcs, what I liked, what I disliked, all that stuff. So now we're finally here, and we're getting right into Vrains. Now, I just want to start off by saying the animation in this is pretty cool. I really enjoy this. But I think like part way through the story, they had to alternate animation artists, because every time they go into like a new Yu-Gi-Oh series, there's always some kind of new summoning method, and this one is link summoning. Now, what is link summoning? Well, it's basically where it's, let's say you got like a link monster, because link monsters don't have any defense at all. No, not even zero or nothing like that. It's just zero defense, like non-existing defense, and just attack points. And they're almost always effects. And they cannot switch into defense mode because their defense is non-existent. They only have 0. And they go into typically the first one, the first link summon monster that you put onto the field automatically has to go in one of the specialized boxes where link monsters go. And link monsters, why they call it link, because they have these, because they're like a hard blue borders, and they also got these corner points around the border. And if they're highlighted, that means once it's placed on the field and it's pointing towards a particular monster, whereas on your side or your opponent's side, it can offer some type of unique effect. So typically where it's summoned, requirements are, oh, this particular monster requires 2 effect monsters, doesn't matter what they are. So in order to summon it, you have to essentially tribute 2 of those requirements on your field, put them in the graveyard, so you can be able to require to summon that particular link monster onto the field. And there's no limits on how many times you can summon one, as long as you meet said requirement. So very unique. And of course, when they came out with this unique thing, it was during like the Link, Yu-Gi-Oh! Link video game that came out, and for a time, I think they kind of stopped that after a certain period because it was they doing those speed duel things where they shortened the because they trying to help out because after pendulum summoning things got kind of crazy with the amount of summoning people are doing and taking up so much time in their turns, summoning all manner of monsters every which way possible. uh and because you gotta speed it up because people don't have time waiting for like darn near 7 minutes before you're done with all the summoning you can put onto the field. So you got like speed duels had like you get 3 monster zones, 3 magic and trap card zones, and no main phase 2, so we can just get to the point. But after a while, because I wasn't a huge fan of speed dueling, I like what we got. So now we got like master dueling, which they actually incorporate into the show. You see that at least a handful of times where you got like the normal placemat kind of situation, and you have the extra boxes where you can put your link monsters at. But there's only 2 spaces, one for you and one for your opponent. But after you already have a link monster in the typical link space, then any further link monster summoned, you can then put it in your regular monster zones, however you want it. So that's typically how it's going to go so far as the summoning method, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that. So far in the show, I don't see any other type of summoning being done. No synchro, no fusion, no Xyz, no pendulum. I doubt they probably do any pendulum at all. If I be perfectly honest, I'll probably see Xyz and synchro before I see any pendulum summoning. Even though I don't mind the pendulum thing, but I'm so glad they kind of done away with the whole action duel thing. I think that's kind of like trying to add something, to increase the stakes of the duel, because they're trying to do some extra gimmick to separate themselves from other Yu-Gi-Oh series, and I think that's kind of like, why bother? Like, because like, oh, you're in a pickle, let's run to action card to evade an attack, and it's kind of like, I don't know. I think for the most part is kind of like pointless. I won't say pointless, but it's just not needed. Just trying to add further drama, the part wasn't really needed. Anyway, so one of the minor cons I have for the season, I'm not sure if it's going to continue on in the 2nd or 3rd season, but there's been at least 2 or 3 episodes where it's just recap episodes. I think that, when the time the show was coming out, they had like breaks, or they were switching like art directors or animator or whatever. So I guess that would explain it, but it could just like not air a day, at least because give like a couple of weeks time or whatever the case may be. But then at the same time, I'm thinking, well, it probably at that time when the stuff was coming out, it was let's just say it was like a good chunk of time, like a month or so since the last episode, and those recap episodes is to bring people up to speed in case they forgot. People had short attention spans, but honestly, it really was not freaking needed. It was kind of like a waste of an episode. Also, we're in a world now, well, at least further along to the future. I'm not sure how this is set up after the whole debacle, in my opinion, with the whole separation of universes or whatever. I think they kind of done, kind of one of ease our way out of that thing and not want us to think about it. So let's just assume this is going on to like a linear time frame. So further along into the future of the Yu-Gi-Oh franchise, where the world now is kind of ironic given how with AI and a virtual world and those Oculus goggle Apple things, where now we're in a world where people go to the virtual world where they can play duel monsters, and there's these kind of like I forgot what you call those, kind of like data streams, I think, where you can pretty much surf on it and you can do the speed dueling on there because everything's like high speed, and you do the speed duels there. And so now I think so far, I'm not sure about like season 2 or 3, but this is probably the first time where there's no magic element that we're diving into. At least, like I said, so far. It's only gone through season 1, but so far I was like, whoa, no magic kind of element. There's no Shadow Realm thing. There's no mystical element whatsoever. Matter of fact, well, about to say, like, because Yusei and this new character Yusako, the only ones I can think of that never have any kind of pendant they have to wear that harness some type of power. Yeah, so we're in this kind of world now, in this whole, we got the real world and people going to this virtual world to do all the dueling and all this other stuff. So we're following this character Yusako Fujiki, who his online avatar is named Playmaker, and he has a Cybers deck, which is very unique. That nobody's, it's like a unique type. It's a brand new type of monster. You got like the Pyro, the dragons, winged beasts. This is like a, I think like goes around 5Ds when they introduce new types called, the psychic types. So here we have Cyburst, which is very unique, and I'm very curious to know how they play, because I already roughly started building the Yusako deck a while back, but I didn't want to start playing it until like actually seeing how Playmaker plays this thoroughly, so that way I can, when I start playing it myself on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, I can be somewhat familiar at how the components work, because I was like, I was roughly at that time fresh into the whole link summoning thing. I got it, but I don't use it so often. The same way it was like pendulum summoning. I don't use it as often unless I'm using a particular type of deck, like the Performer Power decks. It's like, okay, those are heavy pendulum summoning type of a deck, and the Playmaker deck is probably going to be the only one that's heavy on the link summoning side of things. All the other decks I built in my playthrough of Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, it's like, well, aside from certain decks like, like Raid Raptor, where it's heavy on Exceed summoning, or something like Crow Hogan's Blackwing deck, where it's heavy on synchro summoning. Other stuff like Yugi's deck or Kaiba's deck, I have like a method of synchro and fusion summoning and ritual summoning, which is like a decent healthy balance. We also got, this character called Blue Angel, real name is Sky Zizen, Yusako's friend Cal Coulter. There's other character named Emma Bisho, who is typically named Ghost Girl, who's come across very like Catwoman type of attitude, where she's in it for the money. It's kind of like a mix between Black Cat. Black Cat, Catwoman, Black Widow type of woman, where it's like espionage, in it for the money type of lady. Then we got like at least a couple of overarching villains, but the main one we're focusing on for the season 1 is Japanese named Revolver, because his deck is pretty much like, you know, dragons, but they got like a gun type of compartments to their bodies, like literally revolvers or missiles or bullets on their face. And the character, his because his real name, at least the English dub name, is Ryoken Kajami, and God, what is his online name? Varys. But the Japanese sub is Revolver. And his online avatar literally has bullet earrings on. It's like really leaning into the whole like gun type of look. Then we got, you know, this, because like almost all like main protagonists, they gotta have some kind of, you know, other personality type of situation going on. Well, aside from like you say, but I guess you can count the Crimson Dragon to be that. But you got like these AI, you know, well, they just call it this kind of AI creature that's sentient, that's come from a cyber's world after he's like, you know, being hunted. Well, I'll get further into that. Finds his way into Yusako's dual disc and stay there while they're teaming up to deal with this faction called the Knights of Hanoi, being led by Varys himself. Then there's also this other faction called Soul Technologies. This other, like, you know, potential overarching bad guy. So, oh, and then we also got this like schoolmate of Yusako called Noiki Shima, who's not as the biggest comic relief as these two Avatar-like reporters, Pigeon and a Frog, they're decent, but it's like annoying the way they kind of take up airtime, where they're trying to be like, you know, they're trying to be like the, you know, J. Jonah Jameson, Peter Parker type of characters. Like, we gotta get the scoop on Playmaker, and they're huge Playmaker fans, but they trying to get the hot scoop and be the first one on the job for that. It's like, man, like, guys take up so much airtime. So now we got like these characters for season 1 out the way. So this show is highly unique compared to the other Yu-Gi-Oh franchises that we are familiar with. This one is very heavy on like the plot, you know, the overarching plot, because they're in this I mean, usually it's kind of annoying. It would have been kind of annoying to me back in the day, but I'm so heavily invested to the overarching story, it doesn't bother me as much, because there's, you know, a certain degree of episodes, at least out of season 1. I think a good half of the episode list isn't doesn't have any duels within it. You're just following along to what the plot is, because there's this major conspiracy or mystery evolving around the Yusako and his friend. And Playmaker, I'm going to flip flop between Playmaker and Yusako, so forgive me. But Playmaker and Cal are they had like they went through some serious trauma that they're trying to break down the mystery behind it, where there was this big when these two were young, they got involved in this big thing called like the lost children or something like that, where Playmaker is one of out of is like one out of the 6 children back in the day that went missing, and they were trapped in this like isolated, each one is trapped in this isolated room being forced to duel constantly, not knowing why, but they eat, sleep, and duel. That's all they was doing for like almost weeks or so. And the more you lose, the less you would eat. And it's like, it shows a very traumatic thing to Playmaker, and him growing up to like want revenge and trying to figure out what happened to him, why was he captured, because eventually he was rescued, but this was like a very traumatic experience. So now he's trying to figure out he later find out that the people behind the Lost were called the Knights of Hanoi, and that's why he created the online avatar Playmaker, because the Knights of Hanoi show up and he's trying to draw them out so he's kind of like a vigilante in the cyber world, and he's an excellent duelist, and he's trying to work his way up to find the leader of the Knights of Hanoi so he can figure out why was he kidnapped, what was the purpose, and and try to stop their machinations. And Cal, his brother got there's something about his brother. What is it? Because Cal is a mild-mannered hog dog food truck guy, but undercover, him and Yusako is like hackers essentially. His younger brother was kidnapped and was part of this whole Hanoi project, or the Lost. So now it's like it gives him a reason to help Yusako, because they're connected in that way. And Yusako is very like antisocial. It's not like he doesn't care about people, it's just like he's not very humorous. He doesn't have any kind of comedic moments like that. I mean at first you almost got that with Yusei a bit, where he's a little stern, but he does socialize, he does make friends, and he does like crack a smile every once in a while. But this is like pushing that Yusei personality to like a notch or two further, where he just like almost stone face in a way, where he doesn't, if he hangs out with anybody, it's probably just Cal, and that is it. And even though like Shima is like trying to make friends with this guy, because he's like constantly like trying to, because he's under the assumption that Yusako is a sucky duelist, and it's like, oh, I can help you uh uh with your dueling, you know. And like this dude, Yusako is so like, you know, cold. It's almost like a mix between Kaiba and Yusei in terms of attitude, and you get like Yusako, if that makes any sense. And it's like, because Yusako got this gimmick that he does, that it's like when somebody asks him certain things, like, what makes you say that? 3 reasons. As he got that from one of this like a voice that came through the intercom when he was trapped in that isolated room, trying to keep him going when he wants to like give up and die. He's like, you know, just give yourself 3 reasons, and that'll help you motivate you to push forward. Just think of 3 reasons. And so that he adopted that mantra. So now it's kind of like his thing, where it's like, well, you know, 3 reasons why I don't want you to teach me. You know, and it's basically like, you know, you kind of suck. You assume that I'm like kind of a crappy duelist because you judge me on the type of duel disc I have, because he's not one of those, he's not super into the like brand spanking new type of dual disc that everybody else has. He got like a older model that we're probably used to seeing, and he actually got like, you know, regular cards, while everybody's just so used to using virtual cards to draw from, kind of thing. But it also, in the same scene, he also shows that he's not completely cold-hearted, where he also points out to Shima, where it's like, you know, but it took you courage to come over to befriend me, and you don't look down on me regardless of how my cards are, which is like a good positive. So you're not completely, you know, like clueless and blah blah blah. So despite his cold way of displaying it, he shows that he doesn't like hold any kind of grief or animosity, or just like, you know, just straight up dickishness that Kaiba probably would have displayed. But it's got like the same mannerisms as probably you would see from Yusei, but pushed through the filter of Kaiba. Because all that horrible experience is really kind of like shut him off towards like, you know, the world essentially. And through the course of this, he does start making like friends, even though he probably wouldn't, you know, consider it that way. He still made like at least a couple of friends, like Blue Angel and Gore, who's like celebrity duelists. So Varys is you see the opening where Varys is chasing down I, who was coming from this, like, you know, Cyberus world, where Varys is trying to eliminate all traces of it and its AI inhabitants. And for it was like at least 5 months he's been chasing this, you know, 5 months or 5 years or something like that. We're chasing down this AI, and it finds its way into Yusako's deck. It's actually spying on him, and he chose him to go to this dual disc. And of course, he fakes like he doesn't remember everything, but he actually does. But we'll get into that later. So, thinking like he can utilize I to help him, because of I, he's able to summon these Cyber's cards and these special link monsters through these data storm things, where you actually like, it's kind of like a Destiny draw thing, only you actually put your hand through these little storms and just summon a card through to help him win his matches. Eventually he meets up with Blue Angel, who in reality is related to one of the security officers, like the top guy of this, the Soul Technologies Corporation security people. What's his name? The brother Saizen. Akira Saizen. Because there's a lot of like a fair amount of trauma these characters are going through, more so than you see in most other Yu-Gi-Oh characters. Well, I say that, but if you look into each series of Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a fair amount of trauma a lot of them go through in different degrees. You got like Merrick, who literally went through physical abuse by his father. He's gotten a split personality, and who then that personality murdered the father. Then you got like my Valentine dealing with crippling anxiety and feeling like less than by compared to her peers like Yugi and Joey, where she's not, I forgot what the word would be, but it's just like she doesn't feel good about herself. At least she doesn't have she lacked the confidence in herself in a way. She's a great duelist, she just doesn't feel like she can measure up. She's like that like I said, I can't remember the exact title of the word that I'm looking for, but you get when I'm driving at. Like you dealing with Yusei and his friends, dealing with like social class issues. You got like Yuya dealing with having literally coming from different meeting himself from different dimensions, and they're part of this one whole of this one individual who is like a mass murderer essentially, that's been separated to keep him from causing any further devastation. So there's quite a few like just like sick stuff. If you, it's not just about card games. If you look hard into it, it's just like wow, it's like these dudes can do some serious therapy. What else? So oh yeah, I was getting to like Blue Angel and Akira, who when they was young, because he's the older brother, but when they was young, they lost their parents into some kind of, I guess, a car accident or something. So they literally, the brother had to use his hacking skills in order to help mob bosses, in order to hack into certain industries or whatever, so he can get paid, so that way he can provide for his and look after his younger sister, who he's pretty much coddling in a way, and he doesn't want her dueling because she might get hurt or whatever, because dueling in the cyber world is kind of like the Matrix, and essentially if something happens to you, your brain will make it real kind of situation. Which, why would you implement that in this kind of thing where somebody falls off their board and crash onto the ground? They literally feel something, maybe not to the same devastation like they're actually getting legit head injury, but they will come out of the cyber world feeling something. Oh, and by the way, and speaking of the cyber world, one of my biggest cons about that is just it's nothing unique about that. At least with the holographic system in Arc 5, where they kind of change up the playground, where as goofy as some of them might look and very random some of them might look, like literally a dessert playing field or something like that, with like different desserts and sweets and stuff like that. or some might look like buildings, some like look like literal places from shows that we've seen before, like Heartland City type of thing. At least they change it up every time you see like a duel. Here is the same cityscape of the cyber world. They don't change up nothing, and I think that's like, you're literally in a virtual world where you can, make up whatever you want. I'm not sure that will, change in the later 2 seasons, but that's one of the biggest issues I have. It's like, man, why are we seeing this drab cityscape every time? You don't even at least like make a metal, or make, like I don't know, you're on top of a blimp in the sky or something like that. I don't know, but the same old cityscape is very boring, and it's always got that same muted, blue color scheme. Whereas like, at least make it rainy, make it like, daytime or snowy, change up the weather, do something. What else? So Varys has these henchmen, and each one of them go after certain people. Like, one literally gives an infected card to Blue Angel, is takes over her mind while she's dueling against Playmaker, and she ends up in a coma, which upsets the brother, thinking Playmaker was one responsible. But literally, as Varys shows up and admits that it was him, and he has the cure, and causes like the first master duel that we see. Because actually, this is one long duel. It's the first, like, a speed duel between the first duel between Playmaker and Varys is a speed duel. Then it gets into like a master duel where it's actually like a big virtual playmat, which is very dope. And the duels in here overall are very impressive. The animation of these creatures are very impressive. But the summoning method that we see at first, where it's like literally you seeing like a lightning in the sky essentially, and you flying through the link grid, and you out in this like virtual space, and you see all the monsters turn to like cyclone funnels that goes into these points on the grid, and out pops you and the monster you summon. That got very tiring very fast, where you constantly see that motion. I don't mind that if it's the first time you see the monster, but after a while you just do what they later do, where it's just like show the grid in front of you, send the monsters to it, then out pops the monster, because we don't need to see the same animation, that long animation, over and over again. So they quickly realized that. I think that's because they changed up the animation guy in between after the first several episodes. So once Playmaker, because he's a very honorable duelist, he defeats Varys, and Varys is an honorable dude himself, so he gives Playmaker the antidote to revive Blue Angel. And this indebts, or at least Aizen sees like a different, not Aizen, Akira sees Playmaker in a different light, where it's like he's actually has some honor to him and not the enemy that you think he is. But it's also put him on the outs with the Soul Technologies, because these faceless people is almost very like the Big Five type of situation, only these like different chess pieces talking through these I think 3 chess pieces, like a bishop, a king, and a knight, all speaking through these things, and they end up downgrading Akira for like going behind their back like that, and then hires this dweeby smarmy opportunist dude who honestly don't care. He gets done away with by Varys after a certain point. Uh, uh, so we don't really care about that. Anyway, but Akira still hires Ghost Girl for certain things in order to get information, and it's kind of weird. I'm not sure. In his mind, he thinks like he's helping Playmaker, and Playmaker gets very furious because they go inside Soul Technologies, like little data banks or some, I think it's Soul Technologies data banks or something, where Akira and Ghost Girl go inside and try to help Playmaker get over these issues, because he figured out what happened, and he's trying to like, no, like, I've been through horrible stuff too, Playmaker. I don't want him to, like, I want you to be able to move on. But the thing is, like, dude, it's not your call. I don't know why he feel a need to, like, interfere like that. Cause I think he's overstepping in his view on trying to help. You kind of overstepping your bounds. I think that was kind of like, my issue with this character. I can see why he wants to help, but you're trying to compare your trauma with his trauma, and not to me like one is more traumatic than the other. They're both in their own way very traumatic that nobody should ever go through. That one, like, one was having to literally live on the streets and literally like hustle with criminals in order to rise to the top so he can take care of himself and his younger sister. While the other one was literally kidnapped and held against his will for weeks, forced to duel for food. So that's different. That's vastly different. At least you had somebody and you're out and about at the very least. You wasn't kidnapped. So, like, you have no place to just go in there and just trying to keep this information that he's been seeking for the longest time, because it's been trying to figure out who was responsible, where was held, all this other stuff. Of course, he duels against Playmaker. Of course, Playmaker beats him. But like I said, the duels in this show is phenomenal. It's really good, despite my personal, like, aversion to speed dueling and that limited amount of use of space and everything like that. I'm not like a huge fan of. Despite all that, the duel is still freaking amazing. So then the whole being affected, Blue Angel being affected by that virus thing, that was only like a prototype essentially. That's like stage one, or phase one, I should say. They was practicing how, because Aizen's underlings, he's like at least 3 underlings, and it's kind of wild to me because he's like one of those unique villains where he actually has a point of view, and we'll get to that soon. But it's like you're trying to say like, okay, you're doing this for the betterment of humankind around the globe, and it's legit, reasons. You can see his point, but you're hiring at least a few, at least a couple of his underlings are like kind of psycho. You can make the argument because like the other ones are, kind of like see the light as eventually, but a couple of them, it's like, and then like the really grunts type of faceless grunts that works for them too. They're like psychos or bullies, and it's like, how you consider yourself a good guy when you got like little people here just doing whatever, thinking like they can just, because they don't believe in your cause. You even said it yourself, but he was referring to the grunts. But it's just like one of the Aizen's little underlings, Spectre, he is the worst of the worst. And it's like, how can you consider yourself like really one of the good guys when you got that guy under you? But one of the other underlings that saw the light was like a female doctor who spread this virus in the cyberspace, and some are getting infected. Then they, kind of like in a coma-like state, and it's like you say, like, oh, this is like better because this fits in like the overall stage of our plan, because what's coming is going to be far worse. We need to prepare, and sacrifices must be made. Blah blah blah. But eventually, thanks to Blue Angel dueling against this doctor, and she released the antidote for everybody to eventually wake up. So that's cool. And, I want to include this little funny little thing with Cal, where he always gets it gets under his skin every time somebody like bigger with him about, is a hot dog a sandwich or not. I think that's always been like a debate in the world, because I don't consider a hot dog a sandwich personally, but you can leave a comment below whether or not you consider like a hot dog the same category as a sandwich. I do not. It's just my mind just can't not look at it that way. It doesn't compute. Your brain doesn't compute it, right? And of course he meets up with Ghost Girl in her public form. Of course they don't know at that time. She actually goes to the hot dog stand to order a hot dog, and then she kind of pokes fun at Cal. It's like, oh, it's a sandwich. And it's like, man, he was like, man, she would have been a perfect girl for me, only if she isn't delusional and thinking like a hot dog is a sandwich. That got a laugh out of me. And of course, like I like the character I, and they play him kind of like a very Deadpool like thing, not the whole fourth wall breaking and stuff, but just the constant talking. And to a certain degree, it does kind of annoying. It isn't like same way with Deadpool, where it's like, I don't know. Usually Deadpool's voice is fun to listen to. I's voice is okay, but it's just like, hey, playmaker. And it's like, I can't like that voice like all the time. He talk like this, and it's just like oh god, it's like kind of grating to a degree. But we later eventually find out that because things get to the head when Revolver gets this big cyber thing after like Playmaker and like Blue Angel and this other character Gore, who is looked up to by like orphans and everything like that, because you got kind of like a wrestler type of cards. They call it Goki, but it kind of very wrestler attitude kind of thing. And honestly, the design of Gore is probably the dumbest looking one of all the other characters. Is like, what are you even wearing? It looks like Biff Jr.'s look in Back to the Future 2, with that that dome on his head, and it's like, oh my god, I do not like that design of that character at all. Can't even take him seriously. But after they took down the henchmen one by one, and they end up in some kind of coma-like state for some reason. I'm not sure why. When they get beat, it make no doggone sense. I'm pretty sure there's some kind of reason. Just it probably escapes me, but it's not like when other characters lose, they end up in like some kind of coma-like state. There's usually some added X factor to it. But things come to a head when Revolver gets this big, cyber's kind of like tower sprouting up, which either locks out people keeps people from logging out of link Vrains. And if they locked out, kept from being logging out, uh eventually they start getting like digitized into this tower, which increases its mass through 3 levels. And each level takes about a couple of hours to fill up. So now uh playmaker and I, Gore, and Blue Angel go into the Vrains world in order to try to take down this tower. And of course, because Ghost Girl gets taken out by Revolver, but it turns out he had this whole secret card that he wants to implement against Playmaker, because he wants his rematch against Playmaker because he never lost a duel before, and he wants to kind of get his honor back on that front. And you wouldn't believe like this whole secret card is. It's like kind of wild to me. But Blue Angel duel against Spectre, who's responsible for infecting her with that virus card. Then she puts up a decent fight, but she lost against him because he had this kind of link monster that looks like evolves from a tree to a bigger tree to a bigger tree, and it's like the ultimate defense type of situation, while keeping his life points high, while at the same time lowering the opponents. Then Playmaker eventually gets his match against Spectre and eventually finds his way around that defense. All at the same time, while Spectre is keeping like the digital, while Akira's trying to find his sister in the Vrains, he gets captured by Revolver's dad, who we later find out that is in like a coma-like state, and he is, his son is assisting with what his father started in terms of trying to destroy Link Vrains, and by extension I altogether. And so they trap Akira in this thorny cage that if he touches the thorns, he will automatically be digitized. And so now Spectre is dueling against Playmaker, and Playmaker is pretty much being, his hands are tied, whereas the more life points that Spectre loses, the bigger the thorns in the cage you get. And like, I was kind of hoping this would happen. Akira, realizing that Playmaker is playing with his hands tied behind his back, he's like, okay, Playmaker, make sure you step all this and save my sister. And it's like a very ballsy move. It's just like he just grabbed hold of those thorns. It's like, ah! And it's like this encourages Playmaker to fight you over, like, I'm gonna get you for this, and just beat Spectre, who just gone completely nuts anyway, and got digitized after he lost. Eventually it was Gore who finds Revolver first, then starts dueling against him and manages to push Revolver far enough to force him to use his, well, he wants to keep his new cards secret, but he has to pull them out of his hat in order to pull out a win, because he couldn't believe this peon manages to push him as far as he did. So now it's Playmaker who now has like inside knowledge on what new cards that Akira is using, one of which, his special card that he defeated Ghost Girl with, is Mirror Force, the classic, one of my favorite trap cards ever, the classic Mirror Force that we've seen Yugi play, and I'm pretty sure it was literally episode 1, the very first episode of this franchise out of everyone. And I thought it was kind of cool, I guess, because like, oh, it was a classic card, but it's like I don't know, you would consider that is a common card. I love Mirror Force, but that's a common card. It's just like as many cards that would do the exact same thing it does. Some to a cost benefit or so, or some with no cost at all. But it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I think his other Mirror Force type of trap, I forgot what it's called. I mean, look it up, because I think that would have probably been a little bit more makes sense as like a special card, because it pretty much keeps Mirror Force on his field essentially. What is that card's name? Mirror Force Launcher. Yeah, that was it. Mirror Force Launcher. Once per turn during your main phase, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, add one Mirror Force from your deck or graveyard to your hand. If this set card is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can take this card from the graveyard and one Mirror Force from your hand, deck, or graveyard and set them to your field. The set cards by this effect can be activated during the turn they are set. Very powerful. So you can constantly have like a revolving Mirror Force constantly at your beck and call. This makes you like a big threat. And I think, like, you know, Revolver is kind of like the Kaiba of the Vrains series, I think. Because he like got a dragon obsession. Even though his dragons kind of look like guns and bullets and missiles. So the duel begins with the first is like a speed duel, then it will eventually become like a master duel. But it started off with like a speed duel between Playmaker and Varus. I keep flipping flopping from Varus to Revolver. It's the same person, but he drops like we get like, you know, some information now. A long time ago, Revolver's dad wants to, like, you know, make sure create these AIs to be able to help humanity in order to, you know, divert certain catastrophes. Like if a meteor is about to crash to Earth, these things can anticipate that and help us avoid it, all this other stuff. But he wanted to make them unique, so he gave them some level of sentience. But they eventually kind of evolve. Like I said, it's very real world scenario that's happening right now. These AIs will eventually well, I say eventually, you can tell if you ever watched a Terminator movie, this AI stuff that's going on right now, I think it's going to be a detriment to a lot of people, more so than any kind of benefit that you can probably think of. But the AIs in Vrains was supposed to have a certain level of thought crap, I just had the word own agency, but it kept evolving. And now during with all of the millions of calculations that simulations and everything like that his Revolver's father you know, went through, all saying the same thing, that these AIs will become humanity's downfall. So it was his responsibility to try to counteract them. And the reason they even became a thing, because he was responsible for the whole the lost children incident, where random kids are you know, kidnapped. I don't say it's random, but it's some kids that was, you know, kind of unique in a certain way. But these 6 kids, including Cal's younger brother, and who still is missing, and then Yusako, and and these 6 children, they're dueling information and their mannerisms are being put into the virtual world and calculated, which form these different AI beings. And that we're following along with Yusako is that's why they're such like a decent match together, because he is the data information come from Yusako when he was like a young kid. And it was Revolver, who was like a young kid at the time, who gave the words of encouragement, those 3 reasons gimmick to young Yusako in order for him to keep on going, because as a young kid he's thinking to himself, my father, what he's doing is horrific, and he couldn't take it no more. So he's the one that called for the police to come rescue these lost children, otherwise they would have kept on going. This caused like Revolver's father get in trouble with Soul Technologies, who he worked for, and so he ends up in like a coma situation, literally like monitoring his heart rate and everything like that. His mind is digitized into the virtual world, so that way Revolver can still keep in contact with his father, because he looked up to him, he's feeling bad, so now out of that guilt he's carrying on with his father's mission in order to stop these AIs. So he goes to the cyber's world in order to try to neutralize them altogether. That was his the first plan. But since I manages to escape, that's why he's been tracking it down so much in Vrains. And because he was having such a terrible time, it leads to his next thought process was, okay, I can't completely neutralize this thing unless I gotta neutralize the entire Vrains network. But according to once upon further investigation by Yusako and the others, it's like she's not going to just destroy Vrains in order to stop or destroy That's by extension will also neutralize any electronics that might be connected to that same network. So hospitals, street lights, all types of stuff that is connected to this network, they're all going to shut down, which will cause a huge catastrophe. But according to Revolver, that is a small price to pay by comparison of what these things will end up doing to the entire globe. So a city, they might go through a catastrophe for a little while. It's like something like he probably can sleep easy, knowing that it's going to avert a possible wider scale situation. Which it's like you can see Revolver's side of things. It's like he's not completely evil. He's just like, it's very Thanos-like in a way. It's like, okay, it's like a whole greater good situation. I gotta sacrifice this entire city by comparison in order to neutralize these, wider threats of these AI beings, because they will eventually be humanity's downfall. It's like AI, Skynet, a whole situation is gonna be like humanity's downfall. There's very like today's, worries with, real world AI situation. That eventually they become like our downfall if we start relying on them too much, or they're already doing crazy crap where it's like you can make up something and claim it's a real person. And then he dropped a hell of a truth bomb to Yusako, where it's like, when I tried to capture I didn't capture all of them. I didn't destroy all of them. The parts that escaped still contain his memories. So he claims that he doesn't remember everything, but that was a complete lie, which infuriates Yusako, because you tell me like you don't remember anything, and I had to confess, where it's like, I didn't know I can trust you yet. I didn't know you worked for the Knights of Hanoi. I didn't. Then eventually, I just couldn't figure out the proper time to tell you. So he's like, I think it's best that you shut up right now, because he never like considered I like a partner or a friend, but you can tell he was warming up to him. But he's kind of very, you know, very Kaiba way of handling things. It's like, you know, you can say like he doesn't consider like Yugi like a friend, but he'll never admit it. But he does consider, Kaiba does consider Yugi a friend. But this is how Yusako, been playing. It's like you can tell like these dudes are probably being friends, even though he's like telling like, being kind of cold on them, like, please shut up, like, but it's like, I know what I'm doing kind of thing, blah blah blah. But they was being partners. But now it's like, shut up, I don't want to talk to you right now, we'll settle this later. But because the Revolver points out, it's like, if an AI is capable of lying to you, what else they can be capable of doing? That's why you cannot trust them. So the speed duel continues. Everything's like dope as hell. But then Yusako tries to do, because each character has this kind of like unique gimmick to them when a certain requirement is met. Because it's like a thing unique to like speed dueling, where it's like you actually get like certain cards with a character's face on it, where they get like a unique thing that you only can activate once per duel. And Yusako and Revolver's unique things similar, where it's like once they get to below 1,000 points, they get to do like unique draw. And of course they plunge their hand into like a data storm to try to pull out a unique monster, but the storm is so ravaging more than usual here, it's literally ripping up his virtual body. And you see like I literally coming out of the dual disc in like a humanoid form to keep Yusako from falling, even though like he can't completely get out of the dual disc, because Yusako's kept him like essentially trapped until he figure out how to, because he's using I in order to find out about the Knights of Hanoa and everything like that. So I merges with his board in order to him to plow right through the storm so he can get his card. And at the same time, Revolver's dad uses his last bit of his essence that's keeping him alive essentially, to help Revolver get through the storm so he can get a unique card. But because of that, Revolver sees like the heart monitor flatline, so he causes like a tie essentially, which in a way it seems like a very gimmicky thing you see in Yu-Gi-Oh series, where it's like something critical is happening outside of the duel, we need to end this right now, instead of, well, there are times where people just surrender. It's very rare, or something interrupts the duel that causes like a disruption, so there's no declared winner, not even like a draw. Or sometimes you have something like this where somebody just has like a particular card that will cause a unique situation that ends up in a draw, where both players lose like like over 1,000 life points when they're at the tail end of the life points. So he runs back into the real world in order to look after his father, because he just passed away now. Cal and Yusako runs to him after they figure out where he will be, and they made a deal. Like, Yusako said, if I lose, you can do whatever you want to Vrains, but if I win, you the tower goes down, kind of situation. And of course, you've seen from previous episodes where Revolver is very honorable and uphold his end of things. He's not callous like that, at least not completely callous. So they do like a one final master duel, and now that things between I and Yusako's getting back on a better foot, and they end up doing this one of the amazing duels and uh and a very unique thing, because the link monsters, of course, they link to a certain because of these points on the card. It links to another monster on the field, and the way Yusako set it up, and of course Cal points out what literally the audience will be thinking, where it's like, okay, this is cool and all, but what's the point kind of situation. But there is a point to Yusako's method, and the points, all the monsters that Revolver set up, and all the monsters that Yusako set up, all are connected into one circle point. They're all like literally linking all together. It's like very cool looking, and all helps Yusako. And Yusako eventually ultimately wins with his code talkers and all these talker type link creatures, as Firewall Dragon and things like that, and ultimately beats Revolver. The tower goes down. Revolver in his real body escapes, and Yusako decides to release Ai, since now his quest has finally finished. Even though you never found out what happened to, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a continuation in season 2, but you never find out what happened to Cal's younger brother. Where the heck is he? But if he releases Ai, so he can go about his. It's kind of like very Aladdin, where he releases the genie. So it's kind of like you can do whatever you want. I'm not, it was only keeping you here until we figure out what happened with like the Lost, and figure out what I need to figure out. So you can go. So Ai says, his goodbyes. Of course, we know he's gonna probably come back, and then yeah, and Vrains is back, good as new. Everybody is revived. So yeah, ends on a pretty good note. The show is amazing, and I put it way above like Arc 5, and definitely above Zexo. In terms of like how I put it, it's like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, that's a classic. I can't not keep it at the tippy top. But then it's like, Duel Monsters, GX, 5Ds, and Vrains is how I order my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. And I think, despite certain issues, I think like Arc 5 is next, and then Zexo's at the below. And I already addressed my issues with Zexo during my review of the show, so you can check out my thoughts on on my YouTube channel. But yeah, so far that is Vrains. Very, like I said, cool animation, and like very unique, where it's like you get your fair share of awesome duels, and I think that's probably why it looks so awesome, because they save those for like certain episodes, where it's like very 3 to 4 episode long duels sometimes. Well, it can range from like 1 or 2 episodes, or going from like 3 to 4 or something like that, depending on like the severity of the threat. But other times it's like story driven, and it's like a mystery you gotta solve kind of situation, like usual animes are. But man, it's like very good. It's very good, and highly recommend it. Of course, I managed, I guess years ago, I got the entire Vrains show. I don't know if I bought it or they just automatically was there. I can't remember, but I had all 3 seasons on Amazon Prime, so that's where I'm watching it. So I'm eventually gonna get right into season 2, and whenever I'm done with that, I'm gonna make a review of it. So yeah, man, it's a fun show. It's really good. I'm thoroughly impressed. But leave a comment below, let me know what you guys think of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. What was your favorite character so far from season 1? I do like Yusako, very unique, but he's kind of like very anti-social. So it's not like it's like a polar opposite of what you get from Yuma from Zexo, where it's like super energetic and it's like stark contrast. So it's like now he's like super stoic, but I think I can handle the stoicism where, because when he does do a jovial thing, when he actually cracked the smile and I, is not used to that, it makes it all the more meaningful. Whereas the polar opposite is like where he's constantly joking, is kind of cornbally in a way where it's like not. I hesitate to use the word. I use the word realistic loosely on this, where it's like, yeah, I get you're a young teenager, but it's like, yeah, it's like oh my god, it's like all that energy. It's like, okay, you're over and doing it a bit, and that's where it kind of turned me off with that character. Where it's like, Yugi is like a good balance between the two. I think Yusei is a healthy balance between the two, where he's like, he's kind of very stoic too, but he knows when like he can lighten, he knows how to lighten up. And I think like Yusei is probably like the best realistic type. Well, I would say realistic, but you know what I'm getting at. And then like, of course, Jaden is very kind of like, a cocky young kid kind of thing, where he actually had to grow up to then he got into kind of cold, then he had to learn to lighten back up again so he can have like a healthy balance by the end. I think that is just like those like Yugi, Yusei, Jaden, and Yusako's like the healthiest ones in terms of like personality wise, in terms of growth, while the others it's like, it is what it is. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit where I give my spoiler review on a couple of movies for the month of February. So stay tuned for that. Like I said before, like and subscribe, share this with your friends, and I'll see you all soon. Peace.